So the conversation I had with Robin, we was debating whether or not we wanted to throw this out there. Robin is come to the conclusion that it is a good thing to tell people this, because there's nothing they can do now. There's nothing they can do about it. So we are going to tell you what the end result is, or what's so powerful that even at a high court level, Royal Courts of Justice paper exercise giving us a declaration is possible, and the government would then have to appeal it to the Supreme Court, put it that way. So this relates back, and I want people to understand what it relates to. I have done a number of videos, they're on my timeline, I've republished them from 2016, about the Metric Martyrs case, right? Do you remember the banana one? There's a few others I've done. But I've gone into detail explaining the reasoning of Lord Chief Justice laws. It is an exceptionally important case, and I believe at the end of this, when we are finally free from the European Union and these treasonous politicians, that the man that was received a criminal record in that case for selling bananas in pounds and ounces rather than kilos, should receive, because he's died, a posthumous pardon. That case is so important, and I'm going to tell you the reason why it's important, and then I'm going to explain to you the killer blow. Lord Chief Justice laws in the Metric Martyrs case, it was the Sunderland v Turnberry, I believe it was. He stated that the European Communities Act of 1972 had, and he gave a clear definition of constitutional statutes and ordinary statutes, and he gave a list of constitutional statutes. So anyone thinks that we haven't got a constitution, you're actually arguing against that Lord Chief Justice laws, and probably the most famous ruling since Coates, and since certainly since Blackstone give his commentaries on common law. So again, this is really important to focus on what he said. He said that the European Communities Act of 1972, even though it was unlawful to take us in 1975 there was a referendum, and that referendum elevated the European Communities Act of 1972 to constitutional status. It made that act, the European Communities Act of 1972, into a constitutional statute. In doing so, it made ordinary statutes subordinate to it, right? Because it's a constitutional statute, right? It's really important that you understand that that was the first referendum. The second referendum was held on the 23rd of June 2016, in which case the vote was to leave. It was so simple, yes or no. There were two parliamentary elements after that. One of them was to give us the vote in the first place, so they extended the decision making to us and not them, right, by a massive majority. And they also voted on and passed the European Withdrawal Act of 2017. Massive majority on it. What people must now understand is how important that case is, because in reverse of that, the European Communities Act of 1972 is now an ordinary statute, right? That's why the Romaniacs are panicking. That's why certain people in government are panicking. That's why the European Union are panicking, because the constitutional lock is off, right? It's an ordinary statute. It can be made null and void, right? Because the referendum pulled it back down again and said, there you go, right? So they're now asking for a third referendum, not second, right? So Nigel Farage and what he's talking about is just playing politics. I'm talking about the law of the land and common law. I'm talking about the way in which our constitution is constructed, right? The killer punch is this, and I want everyone to understand exactly what I'm saying here, right? So the killer punch is this. By the same ruling, not conversely, but by the exact same ruling, the European Withdrawal Act of 2017, 137 words, was elevated to constitutional status by the referendum. It was elevated to constitutional status by the Gina Miller case, and it was elevated to constitutional status in the same way as the European Communities Act of 1972. In fact, the European Withdrawal Act of 2017 has much more standing than even the European Communities Act of 1972 did, because there were two major votes on it and a unanimous vote for a referendum to give the people the decision. And therefore, it is argued that the European Withdrawal Act of 2017 is the only way that we're going to leave the European Union. And it was you that voted for that. It was you that have supported this case. And it is Robin Tilbrook and our barristers that are going to walk into that court and win for you. So with that said, I'm hoping you all understand exactly what I've just said to you. The Metric Martyrs case is so constitutionally important. That ruling and the Gina Miller case and other aspects of this elevating the European Withdrawal Act of 2017 to constitutional status is so important that it is a killer punch that they cannot argue against. It is so simple in its 137 words that it is highly likely that the judges in the Royal Courts of Justice may have already made their decision. And it is my strong opinion that their decision could be on paper to say our declaration is that you've left the European Union on the 29th of March 2019. It would then be for the government to seek to appeal that in the Supreme Court. There isn't a single judge, Remain or Leave, that would decide against it. It is too crucial to this country, to the rule of law, to common law, to everything we've already understood in this country as being the rule of law. And as I've said to you on many occasions, the Constitution is the solution. God bless Robin Tilbrook and our barristers, and may they pull on the armour of God and take this case to the High Court, and we receive our declaration as expediently as possible. That's it. End of transmission for the resistance. Thank you very much. And again, don't forget what I believe in. The Constitution is the solution.